And welcome to Candidates Corner on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. Tonight we'll have Joe Gapso on the big board, and I'm your host, Pat Ford. We have a few purposes for this show. It's our mantra. We open up with this every week. We want to give the libertarian community worldwide an opportunity to meet our wonderful, we call them down ballot candidates. What's down ballot candidate? Well, pretty much anyone who's not running for president. We've had a wonderful assortment, mixed community, if you will, of candidates ranging from water board to town council to representative and state senator to federal offices. And it seems like right now we're about to embark on a journey of folks who are running for gubernatorial positions around the nation. We want to challenge our candidates to take what we call lunch pail American issues and be able to communicate them to the voting public, the electorate, if you will, through a libertarian prism. And of course, of equal importance, we want to create a bond around the nation. Let's say in tonight, the gentleman who's running to be the governor of Pennsylvania is as important to the Libertarian Party. It's important to the delivery of our statement of principles. It is as important, as crucial as the delivery of our platform to an entire nation. Because through the successful election of these quote unquote down ballot candidates, which again, run the gamut, we are in many cases introducing the libertarian philosophy and statement of principles to community members who may have never even met a libertarian. Never mind be working with a government that is espousing our viewpoint and is bringing to life to their community the libertarian future that we all work so hard for. Joining me tonight, Joe Soloski. He is the gubernatorial candidate, if you will, running for the Libertarian nomination for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Joe, welcome. Welcome to Candidates Corner on LPTV.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you for having me this evening. It's an honor.
Well, it's, we have a lot of fun on this because what we're creating here is a community, not just of libertarians, but of libertarian candidates. Mm-hmm. So you're running, you are, assuming you receive the nomination, you are in a sense, you're not just running for the governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, you are actually, if you will, running to get elected to be sort of a proof of concept of the libertarian philosophy. Absolutely. Everyone who takes that leap, and I consider it one of the highest forms of patriotism, who takes that leap to run for public office at any level,
yes,
is really the vanguard of what we hope ultimately to become freedom in our lifetime. Absolutely. So again, first of all, congratulations on doing that. You've done it before a number of times. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of this, again, as every time we have a candidate running for office, regardless of the circumstances, we're never going to really know how many people we reach. There are people who, again, who through a friend of a friend, perhaps in attendance at one of your events, perhaps they see one of your commercials online. All of that may lead to a connection that could have lifelong changes for all of us. So thank you so much for running. Let's talk a little bit about Joe Soloski. One of the questions, and this show has a little bit of a formula, I'm going to confess, because it works. Yeah. Joe, you've run for office a number of times. Yeah. What was that libertarian moment that crystallized in your mind that freedom, self-ownership, body autonomy, free markets, individual responsibility? What was that moment in your life when that appeared to you?
I think it was there for a long time. I think it was there inside me all along, going back even to the 1980s. I started to cut my teeth politically in the 80s. I was a Republican for 40 years. And during the Reagan administration, I honestly believed that the Republican Party was going to be moving more toward a liberty approach. I truly did. And I watched every year, especially every presidential cycle, a constant deterioration. Best way I could describe it, I would look at who was running for the nomination. And I would always notice that, I would like this candidate or I would like that candidate. And they would always nominate my fourth or fifth choice. And I'm thinking, what the heck is wrong with you people?
Yeah.
And by the time I made it to 2016, I was pretty much fed up to here. And when I saw that Donald Trump was going to be the imminent nominee, I thought, forget it. I've got to jump off this train. I had already been looking for a better home. The libertarian principles fit me to a T. They always had. And I thought, I've got to put my money where my mouth is.
Right.
So I joined the Libertarian Party. And that was a threshold moment for me. I started a local county affiliate here with the help of several other wonderful libertarians here in Center County, Pennsylvania. A year later, I was running for state representative. Last year, I had the wonderful opportunity to run in my first statewide race for treasurer. Unusual year to be running with a lockdown in place. Made it tough to campaign. But myself and our other two great statewide candidates, Dan Wasmer for Attorney General and Jen Moore for Auditor General, we did well enough that we won minor party status for the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania, which is a big deal. It helps a lot in special elections and other areas, and it's a big deal when you're taking on the duopoly.
Absolutely. Regardless of how we may feel about how elections are run in this nation, we all have to come to grips with the reality that imprimatur, if you will, that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania puts on the Libertarian Party by giving it an elevated status above, say, and I use the air quotes, above, say, just a political grassroots organization, still, and particularly in yours and my lifetime, means something to a lot of people.
Yes.
That's that sort of good housekeeping seal, and I say that with great difficulty, but that as they see it, that good housekeeping seal implies a legitimacy that we've had all along.
Absolutely.
We've always been, if you will, supported and emboldened by one fundamental concept, and of course, the fact is that we're right. Has always helped, knowing that we were right earlier before a lot of people did. But you're absolutely right. The 2016 and 2012 elections were really lines in the sand, if you will, if you considered yourself an advocate of small government. And the nomination of Willard Mitt Romney, dog on the ceiling and all, and followed up, and then, if you will, by Mr. Trump, it just I think has permanently sealed the deal for the Republicans. The Republicans will be the ones playing violin on their own personal Titanic. They will be the last ones to realize what they've done to themselves in our lifetime.
Yes,
and that presents an opportunity, particularly given the success Pennsylvania has had with the Moulton Maneuver, with membership growth, all of that. It presents a real opportunity for you to present a distinct challenge to the duopoly in the Commonwealth. Let's talk about Pennsylvania for a little bit, and we've had some people from Pennsylvania on lately, and I'd love to get your sense of the body politic. Pennsylvania is one of the most complex states in the nation. I went to school there. I've been there many times. I had the opportunity to attend your most recent convention, and it was a wonderful event. And folks need to go to a Pennsylvania convention. It was spirited. Yes, it was spirited.
Oh, spirited. That's a nice way of putting it.
That's what we do here. But there were great libertarians in that audience, and there were libertarians running the meeting. And so, but there's a tendency to think of Pittsburgh, and there's a tendency to think of Philadelphia. But give us a snapshot of the diverse economy and the circumstances you're running into by becoming governor of the Commonwealth.
Well, as I'm running, you mentioned Pittsburgh, you mentioned Philly. They're always a major snapshot of the Commonwealth. But there's so much more here. We have so much natural beauty here. We've got so much great industry. I come from a small town north of Pittsburgh named Katanning, wonderful town. I'll always have great sentimentality for Katanning. And but we're in that was coal mining area, and Pittsburgh was steel. the coal mining industry's taken a real hit, and there's a lot of people with that great work ethic that's always been Pennsylvania. The economy of Pennsylvania has changed dramatically, I think, in the last 40 years. Technological wise, that's been a huge change. And the biggest thing we have going against us is the growth of government. There's been a lot of new jobs created there, but those aren't really producing jobs, so to speak. They're service jobs. And our state budget has doubled in just 20 years. Looks like the budget they just passed just went over $40 billion. We need to fundamentally change Pennsylvania government. There's a lot of great things happening here, but government is all of a sudden a huge drag, a huge anchor against our economy. And we especially saw that last year with the ridiculous and unconstitutional lockdowns that we had.
I think having lived in Bethlehem for 4 years, I think of Bethlehem and Pennsylvania at large as not just big coal, but also big steel. And yet, on my way home from the Pennsylvania Convention in Pittsburgh, I drove through Bethlehem, and the steel plants are long since gone. It's been replaced by a casino, literally. Okay. It's that, and I've always disliked the term Rust Belt because there's a pejorative there. That Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Illinois, Indiana, that core part of the country, Wisconsin, that we call the Rust Belt, is the dominant reason for the wild economic growth in the 50s and 60s. And quite frankly, one of the reasons why we were able to essentially manufacture ourselves out of World War II. Yes. And so there's so many things that have been lost in that transition. The technology, the tool and die that skills that are involved, the manufacturing skills that are involved. It's an issue that transcends just politics. It's literally part of the culture of our country and certainly the culture of our economy. And when you look at big nearby automobile plants like Lordstown and Ohio and all that being, gradually mothballed, that has dire implications for a state like Pennsylvania, for whom the steel and new car, all sorts of, if you will, vendors and suppliers. What is Pennsylvania doing to become a smart economy? I mean, there are some astonishing universities, Carnegie Mellon, Lehigh. We'll even consider Lafayette in that crew as a Lehigh alum. But what is Pennsylvania doing to foster innovation? Of course, what I mean by that is just getting the hell out of the way and letting smart people innovate.
That'd be the best thing we can do, is get the hell out of the way. When you see all the roadblocks we put up via state government in this Commonwealth, that's the biggest hurdle. I know one of the things I've been advocating is not just reducing taxes, eliminating several of them. We desperately need to make Pennsylvania a tax haven. If you want to attract jobs here, we're going to have to compete with the likes of Tennessee and Texas and Florida. And you look at what's been recommended this year. Governor Wolf very disingenuously dangled a little corporate tax cut, but he wants to increase the personal net income, the personal income tax by almost 50%. And now I even see a Republican lawmaker in the, I want to say the Blair County area, who's recommending another new tax, a 25-cent tax on every package delivered in Pennsylvania. And I look at that and I laugh, and I'm thinking, if that ever hits the desk at a Soloski administration, it's dead on arrival. That'll never happen. But isn't that what government does? They look for, the economy's changed. A lot of the big box stores, the brick and mortar stores have been diminished. They've gone away. We have so much more online shopping, and we have more packages being delivered. Isn't that a wonderful thing? So convenient. Well, darn, government just wants to tax the living daylights out of it now. A quarter a package, they think that's painful. They're trying to present it as something that Amazon and the others will just absorb. They're not going to absorb that. It's always the consumer that pays for it. They'll adjust their prices accordingly, and you and I will be paying that additional tax. And again, they try to dress it up as something like, oh, it's only a quarter. It's only a quarter. what's next? We all know where that goes. And when you've got a state legislature, a state government like ours that cannot possibly, it appears, quit spending, there will be no end in sight to that. So if we're going to improve this Pennsylvania economy, we desperately need to make this a tax haven. And that'll be one of my primary objectives once I'm elected governor.
And Pennsylvania, is my understanding, is not a right to work state. And for a lot of states, particularly older, heavily unionized workplaces where labor participation in the union workforce is required,
Mm-hmm.
and employers are limited, if you will, despite some federal, if you will, some federal court cases recently. Is that an impediment right now in Pennsylvania? And do you find that many of the state contracts, I mean, so many of these large manufacturers / contractors now look to largesse, state buildings, state construction. Are you familiar with prevailing wage laws in Pennsylvania? What is it like to be either a manufacturer or a contractor, a general contractor in Pennsylvania?
I am somewhat acquainted with that. I'm a CPA by background. I ran my own accounting practice for years. And along the way, I had many clients who were independent, small corporations, family-held corporations, and they were non-unionized, okay? But I also had one particular client that was often doing highway construction and a lot of highway drainage. And to bid on certain contracts, yes, they had to make sure they included prevailing wage in order, otherwise they were prevented from even putting out a bid, which I thought is really a shame, because you have contractors out there and their employees love working for them that could put out a much more competitive bid if they didn't have that constraint. Now, I think Pennsylvania should be a right to work state. And that being said, I don't think being a union member and unions, jobs with unionization, going after those same jobs, I don't think the two have to be opposed, and I don't think that they have to be mutually exclusive. I truly think that the more business that we can bring in, the more opportunity we're going to have for both sides. And again, if you have more businesses here, more employees here, you're going to have more families here. You will see our population increase instead of decreasing. And if we have that, you're going to have a broader tax base from which to collect revenue. You could still be eliminating taxes, but the ones that are left, let's say the Pennsylvania state sales tax is a perfect example. Everybody's buying things, and there's certain things that will continue to be taxable. We will have to have some revenue. Well, if you have a larger, broader base contributing to those tax coffers, you can afford to eliminate a whole lot more, like the corporate net income tax, like the personal income tax. You do that, you're going to be attracting a lot more businesses here, and this economy will absolutely boom.
How good a job does Pennsylvania do in retaining the graduates of arguably some of the finest technical universities on the planet? I'm talking again about Carnegie Mellon, Lehigh, Drexel, just to name a few. Do you find from your experience that young people stay in Pennsylvania?
I don't have those statistics handy. I'm not going to shoot from the hip and try to make some statement about it. Mm-hmm. I think that there are a lot of young people that do stay just because of their roots, and obviously, more importantly at that moment, the job opportunities that are presented to them. But let's face it, if someone can go elsewhere, make more money, if there's more opportunities available to them elsewhere, chances are they're going elsewhere. I have 4 children of my own. My youngest is still in college here in Pennsylvania in a graduate program. My other 3 children, Texas, Virginia, Michigan. That's where the opportunities presented themselves, and they were great opportunities. Wish I could see my kids a little bit more, but I understand what they're doing. They have their own lives to negotiate, and seizing those opportunities is important. I sure would like to see a lot more of them here, and we can capture them here if indeed we can just get government out of the way. That'll be the biggest thing.
One of the fascinating aspects of Pennsylvania is, on one hand, your state is literally ringed with major metropolitan areas, Harrisburg, who tried to lurch into bankruptcy a few years back, and I guess was prevented from doing so in court. But you've got, you've got the primary cities, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, but you've also got Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and again, you've got this around the states, but yet agriculture, if you will, outdoor tourism, that entire section of the state called the Wild. How good a job has the state done in allowing agriculture to prosper, or is it more like your neighbor, New York, where it seems to do everything it can to work to prevent success?
I think, again, government is too far in the way on many agricultural issues. I think it's ridiculous that we have a 5-zone milk marketing board and it sets prices. I think it'd be much better if dairy farmers could set their own prices and improve their own market. The same way, thank heavens, the hemp industry, I think, is something that could be absolutely huge for farmers in this state. I think in Lancaster County just last year, it might have been the year before, they had their first hemp crop that was permitted. Cannabis, hemp, the whole hemp line of products could be such a cash crop for farmers. They just need to be able to grow it, and we don't need to have government in any way, regulating crops like that. I'll go with cannabis. They have found much more benefit than, well, I can't think of a detriment. I truly can't. And that's coming from a guy who's never used marijuana himself. But when I see people benefit who have chronic pain, I got news for you. If I'm ever in a health state where I have chronic pain, I'm going to be the first one in line to line up for CBD products. We need to make sure that we do it like former New York gubernatorial candidate Larry Sharp said. Marijuana should be regulated like onions, meaning it shouldn't. People should be able to grow it in their own window box. I think they should be able, we have farmers right here in Center County right now that are starting to harvest sweet corn. You can go to a sweet corn stand. You can go to a local farmer's market. There's no regulation on sweet corn. Well, cannabis is a plant too. It shouldn't have any regulation, period. And the Soloski administration will be working to loosen those shackles and hopefully eliminate them. But those are just two. There's the hemp industry, the cannabis industry, and I mentioned the dairy industry also. There's a couple areas where we could immediately improve, and I'm sure there are many, many more.
Kind of shift focus for a second. Again, the university system in Pennsylvania is renowned. Penn State, you've got, by the way, I spent one of the more memorable weekends of my life at what is now referred to as Slippery Rock University, I believe.
Yes.
A fine family spot.
That it is.
And as I've mentioned a couple of times, you've got this buffet of great private universities. Mm-hmm. Talk to me though about K-12. You've got cities around the country who find themselves high cost, legacy, if you will, pension funding issues.
Yes.
At the same time with terrible test results. Where is Pennsylvania on educational choice right now? Are they joining, if you will, some sort of limited voucher program? What's the attitude like towards charter schools? Is there any chance, or do we have educational scholarships accounts that at least permit some level of choice?
It's slow. It's very slow, I feel. We need a major educational reform in this state. It's been proven. School vouchers work. In New Mexico, under Governor Gary Johnson, proved school vouchers work. And I think they would work well here for the same reason they did there. I think charter schools, we've got charter schools. I just think we need more of them. Cyber schools, we need more of them. And look what we found out we could do last year. We could homeschool en masse. Now, not everybody's cut out for that. I'll be the first to say. I don't know if I would have been up to the task. But to those people who are, they should be allowed to do that. Obviously, they already are, but they should be better supported to do it. And I think a huge part of it is completely overhauling our tax base for education. Across the state, property taxes are the primary funding for education. Now, I know they get other state funds and federal funds, but property taxes are a huge part. And I don't think we have any more archaic tax system in Pennsylvania than our property tax system. It's inequitable. It's the most inequitable I've seen. And I'm saying that as a CPA who's looked at a lot of this over his career. On top of that, you have the other part of it where people could own their home. I've seen this happen both with business, commercially owned buildings and personal residences. People have lost their real estate just because they can't pay the high real estate taxes. Now, I find that to be unconscionable. Nobody should have to rent the home that they've worked so hard to buy and indeed own free and clear. They shouldn't have to rent it from the government every year by paying property taxes. We've got to come up with a better system. And I know that we can. So if we were to get rid of that archaic property tax system, that would go very well hand in hand in reforming our education system statewide. Yeah, we could do a lot more choices individually. And then when it comes to public education, we could do a lot more funding wise, county by county.
Of course, we've got to go towards criminal justice.
Okay.
And the issues that presents. Now, again, this incredibly diverse state, you've got the same challenges that states face nationwide in terms of the opioid epidemic. You've got challenges, if you will, to the current system where police very often in the form of, what we call up here in the New England LEOBOR, Law Enforcement Officer Bill of Rights, preventing an effective, if you will, firewall between police who are difficult and the system itself. On a personal level, I profess to be a radical libertarian. I largely want to see the criminal justice system completely changed. I look towards community policing, community-driven policing, as opposed to the sort of top-down hierarchical militaristic functions that we have right now. What say you? What reforms would you like to see take place in terms of policing in the Commonwealth?
There is indeed a place, a function for private policing. But I also look at our current police forces, and it's a very polarized issue, isn't it? People are sometimes, I back the blue, or they'll say, defund the police. And it's like, we don't need to be doing it this way. And we don't need to be polarizing the issue and each other. There's plenty of room in the middle, I believe. I have friends who are police, okay? They do a great job. They do a great job. And I point out to people, 99% of police are doing a great job. They're serving their communities. They're protecting citizens, and they're members of our communities. They're our neighbors. They're invested in our communities. But with criminal justice and police, let's face it, these are intermingled. And here we are. We are a nation of laws. We're a nation of laws, hopefully good laws. We've had plenty of crappy laws too along the way, and we still have a few. But if we're going to be a nation of laws, we're always going to have some method of enforcement. Let's face it, we're going to. And when people say defund the police, get rid of the police, I'm saying, okay, what are you going to put in its place? Seriously. And I'm not saying that something else couldn't be done or something couldn't be done to complement it. But I'm going to point out two issues. The war on drugs and, of course, current police issues. The war on drugs is a horrible failure. We've spent, the most recent estimates I've seen is we've spent more than $3 trillion fighting war on drugs since 1972, okay, when the Nixon administration actually launched the formal war on drugs. And let me just say, in case anybody has any question about it, drugs have won, okay? We've wasted that money. Our rates of addiction, our rates of drug usage have not really dropped. There's been no major impact. I like the Portuguese model. Portugal, 20 years ago, decided to be very bold, very daring, and they decided they were going to legalize not just marijuana, but all drugs, all of them. Now, I'm not for being reckless. I don't recommend people use drugs, but I also acknowledge that you have every right to put in your body whatever you want. And, every now and then I enjoy a cocktail. Somebody could take issue with me on that, but I enjoy it. And I don't see me stopping anytime soon. I enjoy a good bourbon. Now, if somebody else wants to put some sort of other substance or drug in their system, that's their prerogative. That's their right. Now, Portugal decided to treat the problem as a medical one, not a criminal one. That made all the difference. The rates of opioid uses fell through the floor. The rates of drug addiction fell. There's another huge one. It'll hit me in a minute. Their HIV-related infections went down something like 95%. This is a real-time, real-life 20-year study. Portugal's doing it right. They're spending a fraction of what we spend while they're effectively treating it as a medical problem. And we're still treating it as a criminal problem, ruining people's lives by incarcerating them unjustly. There's a huge change in our criminal justice system that we need to make. And here in Pennsylvania, I will be moving to make sure that any crime, not just drug crimes, but any crime that has no victim. Now, that's typically something like drug purchasing, drug possession, drug usage. If we treat it as a medical problem, that's no longer criminal. We're not sending those people to jail and eating up tax dollars. And we can much better serve those people by treating this as a medical problem. Now, let's look at the police side of that. And I know I'm a little long-winded on this, but it's fascinating.
No, this is fine. Please keep going.
Think about this. Now, our police do a tough job, a job that I would not want to do. Somebody said to me, "Hey, Joe, you're a policeman. We just had a shoplifting incident at Walmart. We need you to go check that out." That's not my domain. That's not my domain. Or, "Joe, there's been a burglary. Can you go check out this break-in?" I'm not trained for that. Now, something like, imagine because we have drugs, we've made a huge problem making them illegal. That's the problem. We made them illegal. And now police have to enforce raiding drug rings, for example. How many police lives, if you're out there and you're listening to the sound of my voice, if you say, "I back the blue," well, good for you. But let me ask you, how many police lives have we lost unnecessarily enforcing these ridiculous laws dealing with the war on drugs? How many police have never come home because they've been killed in the line of duty trying to raid a drug ring? That never had to happen. And if you really back the blue, I think you should look for this type of criminal justice reform. You should look to join me in ending the drug war. It's a huge waste of taxpayer money, your money. The sooner we stop this, the better. And the sooner we stop it, the sooner we'll get better results. And also the sooner we do it, we're going to save a lot of lives, both those of the drug users, and those of the police. How many times have we seen where innocent people have been killed due to no-knock warrant raids? Those must end. When you see names like Breonna Taylor and Duncan Lemp, how they were innocently killed, that has to end completely, and it has to end right now. I'm also against the increased militarization of the police. I've talked to one or two of my friends who are police. We've talked about these issues. There is a place for a certain limited amount of militarization. If somebody is dealing with a true community disaster where innocent people are at risk, and you need something like a well-armed SWAT team to go in, I could see a real need for that. But I don't want to see it keep increasing unabashedly, and police departments being able to purchase surplus federal equipment, military equipment that the feds no longer want. Because in a worst case scenario, that same equipment could be used against we citizens. And that's the last thing I ever want to see happen. Then there's the issue quickly of qualified immunity.
Mhm.
That is somewhat misunderstood. Part of me wants to say we need to end qualified immunity, period. But there's also this aspect. In speaking to police, they've said to me, Joe, it's not what you think it is. When you think of Derek Chauvin, he's in jail. Qualified immunity did not protect him because of his acts that stepped over the line in his murdering George Floyd. And let's just be honest, it's what it was. You take his knee off George Floyd's neck, George Floyd is alive today. His actions basically disqualified him from qualified immunity. Qualified immunity also allows a certain protection for police. Police in your own community, they don't want to be sued. They don't want to have their homes taken from them. There has to be some level of protection. And it would be the same thing if we are going to have private policing. There's going to have to be some protection if these people are going to show up in dangerous situations and put their lives on the line in order to protect you and me. So there's a lot of room in the middle to meet here. So a little long-winded, but there's my answer to your question.
Well, and I don't consider it long-winded. I consider it informative. And I'll always reflect on a conversation I had going back to around 2016 at a candidates event in Warren, Rhode Island, where someone remarked to me that, I asked the duopoly, of course they didn't use that term, I ask a Republican or Democrat a question, I get a question back. Sure. He goes, and we were talking about a candidate, Darrell Gould, and another candidate, Billy Hunt, that night. And he said, I asked these guys a question, and within seconds, I had a complete answer in detail with policy recommendations. And always remember that the beauty, folks, of being a libertarian candidate is that when you actually have a philosophy, when you have a statement of principles, when you have a platform, you really don't have to think. You don't have to time test. You don't have to put that finger in the air. None of that occurs with a libertarian.
It's not necessary. We don't have to pander. Right. We don't have to pander. I've said it time and again, Pat, and I apologize. I know I interrupted you, but I've said it time and again. I'm not going to pander to anyone. I'm going to present myself for who I am. I'm going to present what I believe in, and you're either going to like me or you're not. And hopefully you like me. Hopefully you like what I stand for, and hopefully you vote for me. We're looking to actually fundamentally change Pennsylvania government here. Myself and my running mate, Nicole Schultz, you were talking agriculture. She's a farmer herself. She's also worked for the U.S. Postal Service. She is a phenomenal person. She's running for lieutenant governor. And I truly think we can accomplish this. We just need to reach enough people who believe in us and are willing to finally say, I'm fed up. I am not voting for these Republicans and Democrats anymore. Now, at some point, the citizens of Pennsylvania are going to have to say, I'm tired of the taxation. I'm tired of the reckless spending of the legislature. I'm tired of the runaway debt. I'm tired of them not even funding their public pensions well. Sooner or later, they're going to be fed up. And there's this issue called timing. You were alluding to some of this in your introduction, Pat. We've got to run candidates in all these races. And one of these days, we're going to elect the first libertarian governor in the nation. I'm hoping it's me. If we don't have a great horse in this race, then we don't have a chance. You've got to be able to be in the race, and you've got to take the shot. And the timing of events when people are fed up and they see someone like a Joe Soloski is a great choice. I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is and grow a spine, and I'm gonna vote for Soloski. Honestly, I say to people, what have you got to lose? Right. There could be so much improvement in just 4 years. My plan is to cut the budget by at least 5% a year. I do say that, at least 5% a year, and I'm committed to it. So you think about that. Our budget has gone up in just 20 years from 20 billion. Well, okay, I'll be full disclosure. Our full budget's over $190 billion. But the operating budget is what they talk about every year. It's gone from 20 billion and they just passed one around 40.8. It's doubled. It's doubled. The money's rolling in, folks. The money's rolling in, and they're just spending it like there's no tomorrow, and there's no end in sight. Imagine for a moment in a Soloski administration, 5% a year minimum. You just cut that state budget by 20%. Right. I think that'd be a beautiful thing. And when we look at, legalizing certain activities like growing marijuana, when we look at ending the war on drugs, when we look at overhauling property taxation and doing a complete overhaul, complete education reform, the look of this state in just 4 years could be phenomenally different, and that's what we're striving for.
Right, and if you look at fundamental economics, look what can happen. We all harken back to freshman year in college when we studied the multiplier effect. Imagine the impact of that kind of money being put into state. And I want to emphasize, having read your website, we're not talking about cutting the rate of growth in the budget, right? Isn't that usually the canard? Doesn't the duopoly candidate get up there and they look solemnly at the camera and they go, and we're going to cut the rate of growth, the budget for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Yeah. Only the rate of growth.
They never honestly look the camera in the eye and say, let's cut spending. Right. Let's cut taxes. They don't.
Absolutely. Absolute level. Right. It's, by the way, folks, if you're just joining us, whether it be live tonight or, and I want to stress that these interviews stay up in perpetuity on the Libertarian Party National Facebook page, as well as on the Libertarian Party YouTube page, as well as on the LPTV Facebook page. Joe Soloski is joining us. He is running to be the nominee for the governorship, if you will, for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we've spent about 35, 40 minutes or so talking about policy and, again, explaining our approach to issues, as I always say, through the prism, if you will, of a libertarian philosophy. But, we've got to pivot. Let's pivot to the election itself in the remaining time. I mentioned this with Mr. Sheets, who was on a few weeks ago, and he's running to be United States Senator.
Yes.
For the Commonwealth. And this is going to be a hell of a campaign. Of course, speak to the complexity of campaigning in a state where you've got dozens of media markets. Again, you've got areas of the state which are almost purely agricultural, ringed by some of the great manufacturing centers in this nation's history, challenged by the strife that has occurred in inner cities across the nation. How do you mount a campaign that can somehow cover all that? That's the great challenge, isn't it?
Well, it is. It truly is. And I'll say a couple of things. When it comes to mounting it up against the media, there are a lot of media markets, and we have to constantly be chasing them. I am blessed to be surrounded with a great team of people who are making my job easy. Easy is and a lot of fun, and it should be fun. And with these people, we are starting to reach out to media markets throughout the state. Sometimes it's not particularly successful. I can think of one. I think it was the Lebanon Daily Times. They published an article at one point saying, here are the declared candidates, and they mentioned 2 Republicans. And I'm reading this, and I'm feeling like I should be in the back of the room going, hey, I'm over here, and I was the first one who declared. So I reached out to them 3 different times, saying, hey, you got this wrong. You ought to rerun this article. And check in with me. I'll tell you anything you need to know.
Right.
Crickets. Haven't heard from them. And all we can do at this point, Pat, is keep reaching out to these media markets. And I mean, radio, TV, newspaper, you name it. Thank heaven for podcasts. Thank heavens. All we could do is keep reaching out to them and let them know we're here. This is what we stand for. We're running, and we're running to win. At that point, they can never say to us, well, we didn't know about you. Well, I'm sorry, you're journalists. You're supposed to do that, last I heard. Maybe you don't do that anymore, and you just read what's being spoon-fed to you. So that's always a hurdle, but we're going to beat them at their own game. And ultimately, we're going to get enough attention that they won't be able to ignore us. I anticipate being on the debate stage with all the other candidates, and that's going to be huge. It's a tough thing. Another tough thing about it is it costs money.
Right.
We started to we declared last December 5th. That was my official announcement. We wanted to get a jump on this, get moving. So we had almost all of 2 years to be running toward our win. And we started to take contributions immediately. It's expensive to run a campaign.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
sometimes people are a little tough, I think, asking for money. I don't have that difficulty. I want your dollar. I want your donation. We need to advertise. We need to be putting out signs. We need to be putting out advertisements. We need to be putting out merchandise. We need to be organizing events. We need to be reaching out to people in group settings and also individually. It all costs money. So the more that we can take in, the more flexibility that we're going to have to continue to run this so far successful campaign.
It's so important to do the process in the manner in which your team has already accomplished so much, because again, you can't get out early enough. You're messaging to a group of people in Pennsylvania who I believe are yearning, and I use that word intentionally, yearning for something different. There are fertile fields for the libertarian movement in Pennsylvania. It's already been demonstrated by the dramatic growth in the party and the success in the Milton maneuver and getting folks elected to these, I call them hyper local offices, but that's the bread and butter of, if you will, of retail politics. I can tell just from our conversations, having met you out in Pennsylvania, you truly love the retail aspect of politics, don't you?
And who would have thunk it? Part of it feeds my social creature, but I was an independent sole proprietor running my accounting practice for 30 plus years. And I've always loved the interaction with people. I love being able to take that same effort and put it into a campaign. There's certain personal aspects. I've complained about politics, about government in our state, our country, all my life. This is my way of putting my money where my mouth is and taking a step forward, trying to do something right. I always sum up by when I'm done doing these things, someday at my funeral, I want my kids to look at me and say, you know what? Dad did what he said he was going to do. And that'll be wonderful too. But before that ever happens, I intend to win and make have a hand in making some incredible changes in this Commonwealth. It is kind of an exciting thing to meet people, not just to ask for money. Sometimes they volunteer it, and that's an honor. It's incredible when somebody looks at you and they dangle a $20 bill or start writing a check. They're telling you point blank, I believe in you, and they want you to keep going. And we're going to run this to the end, and who knows what beyond. Hopefully beyond is going to be even a lot more fun.
Right. And again, investing, and there's a couple of words we choose to use on this show. We don't believe in the term governing. We use the word stewardship or stewarding. Okay. We don't use the words campaign contributions anymore. As of 3 minutes ago, we've decided that we're gonna appropriate, if you will, a term that our friends in duopoly use, which is to use the term invest. But an investment in your campaign is provocative on a number of levels, because having met libertarians around the country who are running for every imaginable office, if there is a single common denominator, is that we know how to campaign poor. We know how to squeeze every bit of value out of every shekel. Someone
absolutely.
And that's for two reasons. Number one, the profound respect we have for each other, despite the chaos sometimes, right? The profound respect for how hard we all have to work and how many directions we're pulled in as libertarians to support great candidates like yourself. And also, and I want to stress this, and this is going to be one of the themes coming up this year, as long as they allow me to stay behind this mic, a profound respect in our 50th year of operation, a profound respect for our libertarian elders, the folks who 30, 40 years ago, 45, 50 years ago, were made sport of, who took the slings and arrows of establishment politics and said no, and had the vision back then of what would happen in an era of unfettered governmental growth, and were willing to provoke and challenge a status quo on a uniquely personal level. I can't stress enough the importance of those folks who set up a table at a county fair, and people looked at them as if they were crazy.
Yes.
But guess what? Who was right?
Here we are.
We are.
And we have prevailed, and we will continue to prevail. Let's face it, when you see how much effort the Republicans and Democrats expend trying to stop us in our tracks, they know we're coming for them. They know it. They know we're gaining ground. And it's been incremental, but we're building steam. And one of these days, you're going to see a huge leap forward where all of a sudden it's like, whoa. And you look here in Pennsylvania, you look how many candidates we already have serving here. We lead the nation in elected libertarian candidates. There's not even a close second. And I want to see that happen more and more nationwide. And I'm thrilled that we are doing it. It's great for me to just be part of the process as a candidate. This past week, a young lady in our local county affiliate became a candidate because of a Moulton maneuver letter that she received. And she realized, oh my gosh, she's reading this letter. I can do this. And she's already got her signatures. We've got all of her paperwork in order. It goes in next week. And I guarantee you she will win this fall. And that's one more to the pot. I love it. This snowball isn't stopping soon. It's rolling down the hill, and it's building up steam, folks. And myself, like I say, I hope to be the first elected libertarian governor in the nation, but we have other great candidates. I saw a comment on the screen earlier from Natalie Bruno. Natalie's running for governor in Oklahoma. If I'm not elected, I sure hope she beats me to the punch. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've got a few extra dollars, steer it Natalie's way on her website. It will be money well spent.
And by the way, just by sheer coincidence, Ms. Bruno will be appearing on this show next Friday.
Excellent.
9 o'clock Eastern time. Usually we save that for the closing credits, but she will be joining us. And again, here's an individual who invested a lot of time, a lot of energy in the Jorgensen campaign, and is willing to then pivot and take the focus back to her home state of Oklahoma. And you know, there are so many opportunities in these times of, if you will, I don't want to use the term chaos. That's a pejorative. There's obviously a lot of conversation happening in the Libertarian Party about a lot of things right now.
Sure.
For those who find themselves frustrated by any of that, there are ample opportunities in states like Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Oklahoma, literally every state in the nation, where that bench that everyone seems to complain about on the internet. I never hear that, by the way, at local affiliate meetings, because they are the bench. It is everywhere. This is not the future. This is not some projection. 5 years from now, we're going to do this, 10 years from now. No, it is happening now.
Right now.
All right. And when you look at the work of Cara and Apollo and Michelle and the entire crew, we have been quietly in the background doing the hard work at the affiliate level to present opportunities and alternatives to voters everywhere in this nation. And we've got candidates, the days of the sort of, and I'm not belittling their efforts, the days of the, let's just put a candidate up to have someone on the ballot, that largely doesn't exist anymore. Every single candidate I know is out there. They're in it to win it.
Absolutely. And we will be. We will continue. We already are. We've got momentum going since last November. It's not going to stop. We're building every single election. And I can't give enough credit to the leadership we've had here in Pennsylvania, in the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania. Our leadership over the last 2-3 years has been phenomenal. Our revenues are up, our membership's up, our affiliates are up, our candidates are being elected. We've got a great winning combination here in Pennsylvania, and I hope that other states start to replicate us and even surpass us.
There you go. Now, again, shameless self-promotion. First of all, if folks in Pennsylvania or nearby New Jersey or in the what do they call it, the Lower Empire or something, the Bingham, literally there's this astonishingly huge place, and there are all sorts of folks who've got energy, and there's all sorts of candidates in Pennsylvania they can volunteer for. But if in fact they decide, okay, let's put our energies, let's invest in Joe, how can they do that? Who should they reach out to? Tell us about your website. Just put it all out there. And of course, how they can invest in your candidacy.
It's so easy. It's so easy. My website is joesoloski.com. That's joesoloski.com. You go to my website, you're going to see everything about me, everything about the issues I'm running on, the fundamental changes that I want to see happen here in Pennsylvania. You're going to see merchandise, but you're also going to see direct links to contribute. And we would love to have your contribution. As I said, it's expensive to run a campaign, but with your help, with your contributions, we can keep this steam going. We can keep this momentum going. And I guarantee you, we can win in a little bit more than 16 months. It'll be a remarkable thing. I would appreciate your support. I'd appreciate your contribution. Please do log on to joesoloski.com and reach out to me. You can email me there. If you have questions, I'll reach back to you personally. And if I can't get back to you quickly enough, I'm sure I'll have one of the people on my staff do it ahead of me. But I'd love to hear from you. Thank you, Pat, for the opportunity.
No, and we've got a lot of folks that we're in sort of the contemplative pre-campaign period, or what used to be defined as that, because we've got candidates actively campaigning already. My plan is to have a number of you folks back as we get closer to the actual election day. We want to hear from you, by the way, candidates. If you'd like to be on the show, just reach out to me. I'm everywhere on social media. But as importantly, we want the candidates like yourself who've been on to send us announcements, keep us in the loop, so that that the train is gathering steam. It's really gearing up now. This has the potential, and it's interesting because this is a midterm election, right? This has the potential, right?
This year,
right? The potential to be the most exciting election, if you will, in the broader sense, in Libertarian Party history.
Yes.
And it's time for all of us to jump in, make some choices, get involved. We always talk about, close to 2 million people voted for Joe Jorgensen.
Yeah.
$1, $2, $3. We understand these are challenging times. Thrown out to candidates, we're talking about millions of dollars.
Yes.
Let's find a way to get that next step going, where we take this investment in our candidates. They're running for office, but there's almost an evangelical element to it, where as you run for office, you know that you're bringing an education, a perspective, a real politic to folks around the country who, in your case, may be the first time they've ever met a libertarian candidate.
Maybe.
For the first time, that statement of principles may be reflected to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Joe, thanks for joining us. And again, best of luck. I'll actually be seeing you. I will be Liz Terwilliger, who's also running for Congress. She's been on this show. She is running an event in Williamsport, Pennsylvania.
I will be there.
Just go to lpppa.org, I believe it is. And there's all sorts of information there. Folks, looking like Spike's going to be there. There's going to be some superstars there.
Yes.
In Boston. They're real superstars, in addition to a way, if you're from another state affiliate, a way to really get to know the people involved in the maneuver, pick up some tips. Folks like Jen Martin, Liz, Steve, there's all sorts of folks. The 3 new regional, if you will, vice chairs. Not only are they doing it, they're eager to show other people and other affiliates how to do that type of campaign and that type of election. And in addition to issues, that's the type of knowledge that you can pick up at that event. So I look forward to seeing you in person out there, and I'm sure we'll talk again.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Pat. It's been an honor.
Folks, you've been listening to Candidates Corner on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. Whitney Billiou is chair. As always, my heartfelt thanks to John Gapso on the big board. He's the one who puts up all the graphics and the fun and the challenges, and it put some questions out there into the message board. It's time, folks. We've got an opportunity to literally change the world here. And we've got individuals like Joe and the dozens and dozens of folks who've been on this show in the last year or so. Let's get behind them. Let's get to work. Yeah, you always hear me say it. Time to shut down that computer for a little bit. Get out into the field. Find a job. There's so many opportunities with these candidacies to do something within your comfort zone. If running for office is not personally something you're comfortable with, that's fine. There are jobs for virtually every skill level. Libertarians are some of the, as we say in Boston, some of the wicked smartest people in the world. We've got a home for you if you want to get involved in these hundreds, and I think will ultimately be over 1,000 local campaigns around the country. It's time, folks. Folks, have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you Monday night when we talk about affiliates, and we'll see you next Friday as well. Good night.